And Brandon, let's move on. Our next topic. We're looking at a very dysfunctional situation in the NFL. And it was, I believe, 2 weeks ago. I'm going to pull it up here from our YouTube channel. I believe it was week 1, the actual start of the season, that Mark and I, it was actually 5 days ago. It was this past week. Mark and I talked about the Le'Veon Bell holdout and how worried the Steelers should be after tying with the Browns week 1. And we're back at it, talking about the Steelers yet again, because there was a little bit of a blow up this weekend, just a small blow up this weekend from Antonio Brown, where basically he got upset, yelled at a coach, then told another one, trade me and let's see how that works out for you. And then we've got this whole dysfunction where he didn't show up for work on Monday. He just said, fuck it, I'm not showing up. I'm going to ask you this, Brandon. Are the Steelers blowing up in front of our eyes? Like, are they blowing up right in front of us and we're witnessing the end of the Killer Bee Mike Tomlin Steelers as we know it?
You know what? It's probably too early. I mean, this is an overreaction, I'm sure, on our part, but it's probably too early to say that they're just blowing up, but certainly not too early to say that they have a lot of problems, and the biggest one still is going to be Le'Veon Bell. So you're looking at a guy, your star running back is holding out, still holding out. He's held out 2 games into the season now, 2 games that you come to find out you needed him. Yeah. You're 0-1-1. They probably believed, we can win without him, we'll be 2-0. Certainly 1-1. Beat Cleveland, but that wasn't the case. Then the Kansas City Patrick Mahomes come in and whoop your butt in your own stadium. The Chiefs haven't won in Pittsburgh since the 1900s. I mean, that's where Pittsburgh is right now. They've got their wide receiver yelling at coaches, and now will people say, oh, he's passionate. I get it. I get you're passionate. I love it. I'm a passionate guy too. I get fiery. He gets fiery. I understand. But when you see that going back and forth, clearly you're not on the same page. You're not liking what's going on. Something's got to be different, whether you're not getting the ball enough, you don't like the offensive play calling for the day, whatever it is, you're not happy with it. And that's your star receiver. So if your star running back's already out, your star receiver's pissed. Big Ben thought about retiring last year, might just do it next week and say, guys, I'm done. I don't need this anymore. I'm kidding about that. But, I mean, it's at a point where Cleveland right now, and their defense too, in this past week, did not look that good. While Kansas City has many weapons, and they do, their defense did not look good. So all facets right now for Pittsburgh, they're coming up short. They're coming up really short.
Well, for me, I'm on the other side. I don't care if you call this an overreaction. I don't care if you call this a hot take. The Steelers are blowing up in front of our very eyes. And the reason why I say that is when you sent me the story, you sent me a picture of it, and you said, do we have a story? Meaning, are we going to talk about it today? And I looked into it, and I was like, well, yep, we got to talk about this. So I'm sorry, Jaguars. We're not going to talk about you being Super Bowl favorites. I'm sorry, NFL Draft. We're not going to talk about you. We've got to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. And for me, the reason why I say this is I'm glad you said, well, yeah, he's a fiery guy, and like it's okay because of that. Because the first thing I thought of was a week or two ago, Colin Cowherd had Tony Gonzalez on his radio program, The Herd. And Tony Gonzalez was talking about coaches and what it means for a team. Like he was talking about his time in KC. And he said the thing that he believes is that the team takes on the personality of their head coach. He's like, I wouldn't call myself an emotional guy, but if you look at his personality when he was with the Kansas City Chiefs and then the rest of the guys that they had on those Chief teams under Dick Vermeil, under a Herm Edwards, more emotional locker room because Herm Edwards is an emotional head coach. Dick Vermeil is also an emotional head coach where You go into the Patriot locker room, completely different set of players because Bill Belichick is almost emotionless and is like a robot and kind of this is how we do things. And that's just what the locker room has molded into. Where if you look at Mike Tomlin, he's an emotional guy. Then you look at the locker room and we get this from Antonio Brown. We get holdouts from think of this. When's the last time a Patriot player held out like Le'Veon Bell? You usually don't get that from teams like the Patriots. It's usually teams that have more emotional locker rooms that you get that. And I'm not blaming Le'Veon Bell because I'm on the situation. You sit out as many games as you need. They pay you before you put your body on the line, get injured, and then you don't get your money because no one's going to pay an injured running back. So that's where I am on Le'Veon's situation. But even think about was it last year where they had someone went Twitter live during the locker room after a playoff loss, or it might have been 2 years ago, and we were all talking about why would you do that? Why would you be on Twitter live?
It was this guy.
It was Antonio Brown. But the whole thing people were saying was Mike Tomlin, oh, that's not a big deal. This Steeler locker room has taken on the personality of Mike Tomlin, where Mike Tomlin is a guy, play a little free, emotional guy, go out there. I'm not saying that he doesn't know his football, but they've taken on the personality of Mike Tomlin. For me, I think that Mike Tomlin, I have been on record saying that I don't think Mike Tomlin, when it comes to X's and O's, is a good quarterback or is a good head coach. But I don't think he's a great head coach. I think the Steelers could do a lot better without him. Yeah, he won a Super Bowl, but the thing I will always say to that is, one, probably shouldn't have won that Super Bowl. And yes, I'm going to say that because I'm a little salty about that James Harrison touchdown at the end of the first half, because there was an illegal block in the back. That touchdown should have been called back, would have completely changed that game with the Cardinals and the Steelers. So that's a side point on me. I'm still upset about that. How many years later? That was 2008? So yeah, a decade ago when I was in college. Yeah, I'm still a little salty about that a decade later. But even think about that. Yeah, you won a Super Bowl. That was his second year with the Steelers. That was Bill Cowher's talent. That wasn't Mike Tomlin's talent. Ever since then, lost to the Packers in a Super Bowl. Lost to the Broncos. Lost to the Patriots. Lost to the Ravens. Lost to the Jaguars last year. I think this is everything with the emotion. Just that bottle getting shook up, and we're getting ready to pop that top on this, and it's just going to blow up in Steelers fans' faces. That's what I think. And that could be a hot take. That can be an overreaction. I think that's where we're headed with this season because they're already 0-1-1.
This has been a conversation that many people in the media have had for the last couple of years, certainly last season being one of them. With Mike Tomlin, he's a guy who seems to always do really well in the regular season, and then he gets to the playoffs and it just doesn't happen. And now
can I interject with one
Sure.
thing? Just to help your point. He's 116, 61, and now 1, because he now has a tie, in the regular season. 65% win percentage in the regular season. Yes, he's 8-7 in the playoffs. Take that Super Bowl out where he went 3-0. He's only 5-7 in the playoffs.
And to that, continuing on that point, is Mike Tomlin possibly going to get the Lovie Smith? Where Lovie Smith wasn't necessarily doing anything wrong for the Bears.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't beating the Packers towards the end. And, it was one of those things where the Bears believed that Lovie had capped them. He had capped them at 10-6. He had capped them as a good regular season team, and then a team that maybe if they got into the playoffs, they'd get there for a game and be done.
Mm-hmm.
Is that going to happen to Mike Tomlin? Is Pittsburgh going to move towards that and say, Mike, we're too good of a team where we only win in the regular season and we don't have more wins in the playoffs? We have to compete. with those New England Patriots. We have to be able to compete now with the Jacksonville Jaguars. We have to be able to compete with the Kansas City Chiefs, who you did beat 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But still, is that going to be it? How much longer will the leash be for Mike Tomlin, in the playoffs? I don't have a worry about them in the regular season until this season. But the playoffs is going to be, but Pittsburgh most likely will figure their stuff out and they will end up being a playoff team. I think they will, but I think that they're facing a whole lot more adversity than they have in years past. And that goes, way beyond this goes way beyond well, Roethlisberger's going to retire. Is he not going to retire? This talk of, he just doesn't feel the same way, blah, blah, blah. This is much worse. But is Mike Tomlin, Ricky, going to be that guy that gets chased out of Pittsburgh, not because he's not good, but because he didn't win enough in the playoffs?
Yes. And the thing I'm going to say, I say yes, but it's not going to happen this year. This is the beginning of the end, I believe, for Mike Tomlin, because here's how I feel the Steelers situation is going to go. Le'Veon Bell's not going to be back next year. However it plays out, even if he comes back this year, like Dave and I were talking, and maybe some Steeler fan can give us some more details on this, but Dave was saying that like by, week 10, he's got to come back because he's got to play at least 6 games to have a full season. And if he doesn't play a full season, then, or if he doesn't play what would be a minimal full season by the league, he can't sign with another team during the offseason. But let's say that happens. He comes back week 11 or whatever and plays the last 6 games for the Steelers. Le'Veon Bell to me is gone. Like, if there's no, think about this. Before the season, we were in early preseason. Oh, is there a chance that Le'Veon Bell holds out? Yeah, he's going to hold out, but there will be a deal done. He's not going to miss the regular season. Then we got to the regular season, and a week before the game, it was, a deal could be close to being done for Le'Veon. No deal. Week 1 came, and week 1 gone. Now week 2 has came, and week 2 is gone, and we're about to be week 3 is coming, and week 3 is going to go just as quickly as the first 2 came. You didn't get it done in week 1. You didn't get it done in week 2. Fat chance you're getting a deal done in week 3. That means fat chance you're getting a deal done this season with Le'Veon Bell, because the more weeks he sits out, the more weeks he's probably thinking, man, I can't wait to be on another team. So I think Le'Veon's going to be gone. Big Ben, that's another issue. When is he going to retire? Who knows if it's going to be this year? Who knows if it's going to be next year? Antonio Brown will be the only one that I think just stays. I don't think they're going to trade him. I don't think he leaves the Steelers because I believe he just signed a contract extension recently with them. But I feel like once Big Ben leaves in, let's say, the next 2 years, Le'Veon will no longer be there. And I know Steelers will be like, well, it don't matter. We got James Conner. James Conner, big props for what he did week 1. He's no Le'Veon Bell. Like, there's no replacing
he's
Le'Veon
not.
Bell.
Even if he continued to be good, he's no Le'Veon Bell.
And Mark and I had this debate last week of Mark's like, yeah, he played really good. They don't need Le'Veon. I said, yeah, but they still tied the game. And they still lost to the Chiefs. I am on record last week saying that if the Steelers had Le'Veon Bell week 1, there's no way they tie with the Browns. They win that game in my mind. Now, the Chiefs, I don't know if they win that one because Patrick Mahomes has been like godly, and we'll talk about him in a little bit, but Big Ben is the linchpin. Once Big Ben leaves, Mike Tomlin is screwed. Look at the quarterbacks they have behind him, and I know people are going to say, guys, but they drafted Mason Rudolph, and Ricky, you like Mason Rudolph. I don't think Mason Rudolph is ready. I don't think he's going to be like Patrick Mahomes and be ready next year if Big Ben retires. They got rid of the guy who I thought they should have kept in the preseason. I'm looking, I'm going, how is Joshua Dobbs on this team? Joshua Dobbs looked horrible to me in the preseason. They cut Landry Jones, and I was like, what are you, like the Jackie Chan meme of like, what are you doing? Who are you cutting? I know he's older than Dobbs, but Dobbs didn't look good to me. Like, Dobbs doesn't look like he should be on this roster. That's besides the point. Once Big Ben retires, Tomlin's going to be in some murky waters. That's when what you said happens. Mike Tomlin gets the boot, because I just want to run through some history of his playoffs in the last few years. Yeah, he's been to the playoffs for the last 4 seasons, but you've got 2014 season, he loses to Baltimore. You lose to Joe Flacco in the wild card round. Then the next year, you lose to Peyton Manning in the divisional playoffs. Then you lose to Tom Brady in the AFC Championship game. A team, let's be honest, Mike Tomlin has never had Bill Belichick's number in the... I remember going into that game. Everyone's like, this is the year Mike Tomlin has it. The Steelers have it. Oh, wait, where's Kevin Hogan or Chris Hogan? Oh, he's in the end zone? Oh, we forgot he was on the field. He just walked... He didn't even run. He just walked right past us into the end zone. Tom Brady went, oh, look at Hogan. Touchdown. Like, watching that play, I was like, that is why you will never beat Bill Belichick in the playoffs, Mike Tomlin. And then last year, you lose to the Jaguars. Mike Tomlin and the Steelers' biggest problem is that not only can they not beat Peyton Manning, I know he's not there, but they couldn't beat Peyton Manning, couldn't beat Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. Now the Jaguars have surpassed you. The Jaguars have surpassed you to where you are now the 3rd team. When people think playoff favorites in the AFC, they think New England, they think Jacksonville, then they think Pittsburgh.
And here's the reason why, but I also want to move on to a different topic here, is that within this same
realm
umbrella, they don't have that dominant defense. Nope. That's why Jacksonville has surpassed them. For a long time, Pittsburgh had that dominant defense. When they won the Super Bowl,
Troy Polamalu,
the James Harrison, the Troy Palomalus, that was a dominant defense when they beat Arizona. They don't have that. They're not even close.
Yeah.
Clearly, we saw it this past weekend. They were down 21-0 early. Early. I know that they came back. They tied. It was a close game in the end.
That was funny, though. 3 first-quarter touchdowns for the Chiefs in the first half, then 3 second-quarter touchdowns for the Steelers to tie it up in the second quarter. But they still lost.
It was going to be a shootout for sure after that first quarter. You knew it was going to be.
Yeah.
But they don't have that. Jacksonville does. Jacksonville does. And what Jacksonville showed this past week against, not the best New England defense, but New England, they were never going to have a bad defense. Jacksonville showed all these guys who you can't name who they are, they're pretty good.
Like Keelan Cole?
Exactly. Keelan Cole, D.D. Westbrook is playing. I mean, how about this? How about this? You know, these are guys that aren't on the map in a lot of areas.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, boom. Yeah, they're on that map. And I think that's... And they're doing all that with Blake Bortles as their quarterback. Not Aaron Rodgers. Not Tom Brady. Blake Bortles. And I think that's another thing, too, is that's why Jacksonville has jumped over Pittsburgh, because their defense is just flat out better. But what I wanted to get into is with one of the killer bees, Antonio Brown. There has been a lot around Antonio Brown here these last 2 days. So we saw what Antonio Brown did on the sidelines. Really upset with the offensive coordinator. Really upset with the wide receivers coach. And then Ryan Scarpino, a guy who did PR for Pittsburgh for a number of years. He tweeted, AB needs to thank his lucky stars because he was drafted by a team that had Ben. And Ben got AB paid. You know darn well he wouldn't put up those numbers for other teams. To which Antonio Brown retweeted it with a comment and said, trade me. Let's find out. And so then this whole thing happens of he's not here on Monday. He's not practicing with the team. He's not in there for watching film or anything like that. He's not there. And then when Mike Tomlin was asked, Tomlin originally said, well, I'm not going to say whether I excused him or did not excuse him. And it does turn out that there was some personal matters that Antonio Brown was dealing with. And then here's a statement from Drew Rosenhaus, his agent, that was released on Tuesday morning. And it says, quote, the tweet yesterday was not in reference to anything other than Antonio responding to a person he knows, end quote. That's what Rosenhaus said. And then, quote, "It was not directed towards a trade or wanting to be traded. Any idea he was asking for a trade is not accurate. Antonio had a personal matter. I talked to the team about it. His issue was unrelated to the tweet or his relationship with the team. Third, AB has an incredible drive to win. He just wants to win. That's all that is. That's not everything. That's not anything more than him encouraging his coaches and teammates to win. And that's what his entire focus is on. Any notion, any speculation otherwise can be put to bed. This is a non-story that has been blown out of proportion. We can end this right here and now," end quote. And while, yes, he may not be asking for a trade, the wide receiver is not a happy camper.
Well, and it even goes back to what I said originally. And for me, I know it's easier for me to say this because I'm not Antonio Brown, but I don't originally like the tweet that he sent out, to where I almost think of it like I've heard, I think it was Seth Greenberg said this, or was it Doug Gottlieb? Here's what it was. It was Doug Gottlieb said this, and he said when he was with CBS at doing like the March Madness stuff, he said Seth Greenberg gave him the best set of advice that he've ever had. Because he would always be like, people come at me on Twitter and blah, blah, blah. And Seth Greenberg goes, mute him. Just mute it. Just, if you mute them, they're talking to a wall. They talk, they get to say what they have to say. You don't see it, it don't bother you, and you don't have to respond to it. Basically, just ignore it. It's like the thing I say to you, just to pull the curtain back from our comment section. Whenever we get like a fat comment about me or a hateful comment about anyone, it ticks you off inside. It does. It really gets your gears going.
Not just inside.
Like, you get full, like, fiery Hades hair from Hercules, and you get angry. But it's like I told you, and Colin Cowherd kind of had said this on his show, too, of, like, when you get to those comments, just ignore them. Ignore them. They talk to the wall, and it's like you don't even see it. Antonio Brown, that's what he needed to do with this tweet. Even if he read it, ignore it. There's nothing good that happens by saying, trade me. Let's see what happens. Because then that shows the image to us. Whether you want to trade or don't want to trade, it shows to us, fans, the media, that you only like, and I know the whole wide receiver stereotype too of wide receivers are just divas. Not only does it play a little bit into that, but it also plays into, why do you even care about what this guy said? And it's like I said earlier, like Tony Gonzalez said, teams take on what's the word I'm looking for? The personality of their head coach. And Mike Tomlin, that's the culture he's put into place. Speak your mind. Be an emotional locker room. And that is why, in my opinion, Antonio Brown did that. Because he's been emotional, and it's just been fostered in the Pittsburgh locker room under Mike Tomlin.
But I was going to say, I think that if he wasn't frustrated with how his team has started out this season, if he wasn't frustrated, I mean, a lot of the guys...
Winning changes all. We talked about that in the first segment.
On the guys on the offensive line, they clearly came out and they said how upset they were with Le'Veon Bell not coming. I haven't heard anything from Antonio Brown publicly. That's a good thing. But I can't imagine that he's happy that Le'Veon Bell has not reported to the team yet and isn't playing in the games with them so far.
AB got his money.
True. While yes, he may completely... I completely am for him getting paid. You're talking about Le'Veon. Yes, I'm right there in saying that, he should be getting paid. He should be getting paid his money, and he's not going to go in there and put his body on the line to take an injury and lose out on a big payday when you're a guy who should already have had a big payday. But at the same time, if you're looking at it from the perspective of a player who they are all with you, get your money. They're all behind.
That's what they say. But then you got the offensive line saying what they said publicly.
But then it's also, we need to be able to win. You said you were going to come. We thought you were going to be here, type of thing. And these are things that Le'Veon Bell isn't saying outwardly. He's talking to his boys, though, and saying, hey, I'll be there, man. Or given the illusion that, okay, I'll most likely be around, stuff like that. And then he doesn't come, and poof. So I'm imagining Antonio Brown can't be happy about that either. That's another guy who's going to help them win games. They haven't won one game yet. I think that...
And you tied to the Browns.
I think that this team,
I know
all
the Browns are better than
around,
they usually been.
all around, they're not in a good place. And if they're 2-0, or if they're 1-1 with Le'Veon Bell, he doesn't respond to this. It doesn't even need his time. But when you're upset about something, and you're looking at something, and you're thinking about something, and then it comes from a guy who used to work with the organization, and he says something like that,
You're thinking, fuck you.
you are.
Yeah.
That's exactly what you're thinking. And then you get upset, and you take to Twitter, and you say something like that. But if everything was good, there's no need to.
And the point that I'm saying to that is, if, in my mind, if Mike Tomlin, and I'm not saying it's all Mike Tomlin's fault, I'm just saying, I'm going back to the point, locker room coach's personality. If the type of locker room culture was not set up what it is, on top of the winning, that's a separate part of it, because if they're 2-0, like you said, doesn't even think a second thought. But with what the personality of the locker room is, it makes it easier for him to go and just, I'm going to tweet at him. Whereas in hindsight, he should have just been like, fuck you, and then just put the phone down and not even respond to it.
I don't want to necessarily say that it has 100% to do with it. I don't want to dump that all on Mike Tomlin.
No, I'm saying it's part of it, not 100%.
True, but I know that you've said now a couple of times that they take on the personality of their coach. Well, guess what? Mike Tomlin could be Lovie Smith as all can be and have, okay.
Well, they would have got ice cream already twice. Because they played really good. Guys, we played really good. Rex went out there, and Rex played a real good game. He threw the ball real far. We're going to go get ice cream. Rex, though, he don't get sprinkles, though, this week because we didn't win the game. But that is the punishment you get. But the Bears, we are going to try our hardest to beat the Green Bay Packers next week. Oh, we just lost to the Green Bay Packers? Then we're going to try to beat the Lions. Oh, we lost to them too? Okay, I don't know what to do. That's my Lovie Smith impersonation.
I'm just saying is that was great, by the way. But I've got to say that Antonio Brown is one of those guys where you could be so laid back in terms of you're not necessarily going to be fiery to the media. You're not going to have that, show that great passion. And it's not to say that Lovie Smith doesn't have it, but he just never showed it outwardly to us. You could be that type of personality coach, and Tomlin, let's say Tomlin was that. You get a guy like Antonio Brown. Yeah. He's going to be Antonio Brown. He has got a great personality. He's a guy who thinks for himself. And, clearly he does. He openly, outwardly thinks for himself. He didn't care. Hey, Antonio, we're going to flag you when you do a touchdown celebration. Okay, cool. I'm going to do 2 touchdown celebrations in the same game and get flagged for both of them. He does not care about that stuff. So part of it, I think, is that's just his personality. It doesn't really have much to do with Mike Tomlin. If you're looking for a complete culture thing, maybe you could attribute that more to Mike Tomlin. But for a one-off Antonio Brown, that's Antonio Brown being Antonio Brown.
Here's the last thing I want to mention. 2 things. First off, the thing you said about Le'Veon, I'm going to say this again, so it's on the record in case this is your first time tuning into an onside kick. The thing you got to think about Le'Veon when should he get his money? Should he come back and play for the team? He's 26 years old. Let's be honest. This is going to be could be the last big contract he could get because the team will probably give him 4 years. And then when he hits 30, we'll see what happens because usually 30 is that year where they fall off. Happened to Matt Forte, starting to happen to LaShawn McCoy. 30 is the mountaintop when it comes to running backs, especially a guy like Le'Veon, who has a high usage in this Pittsburgh offense. So that's why I'm like, you know what? Sit out, get your money. The team will be fine without you. And I think that these players should not be looking at Le'Veon saying, why aren't you here? They should be looking at ownership going, why aren't you paying him? Did you see the last 2 games? We need him. Pay the man his money so we can win some games. The priorities are shifted for me. The last thing I wanted to bring up, though, was their schedule. And this week, they go to Tampa for a Monday night game. With how Tampa has looked, they could be 0-2-1. They could be 0-2-1.
With that 0-3 feeling.
Yeah, with that 0-3 feeling. Then you get Baltimore. Yeah, it's at home. That's going to be a tough game. Baltimore, I know, didn't look so good against the Bengals, but it's a divisional game. And Baltimore could show up the Steelers. Could. Then you get the Falcons. Yeah, the Falcons have been hot and cold so far to start, but you're hoping by week 5 they figure something out and they're a little bit better. Then you get Cincinnati. Cincinnati has impressed me this year. I thought they were a 3-4 win team this year. They're half of that.
Eating those rewards already.
I mean, they're a team, when Ricky was wrong, that's basically what the Bengals are. Then you get the Browns again. In Pittsburgh. The Browns could beat you. They almost beat you in Cleveland. Then you get Baltimore again. My point is, I'm already to week 9, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Steelers don't win a game. Like, they have a hard schedule. You get Jacksonville on the road. You get the Patriots this year. You get the Saints on the road. If the Steelers keep going like they are, I wouldn't be surprised. 0-2-1, 0-3-1, 0-4-1. Of course, we're expecting the Steelers to win by some point, but with their schedule, especially into the bye, I wouldn't be surprised if they're winless or a 1-win team heading into the Week 7 bye. What do you think about that before we kind of put a button on this one before we move on into hot Patrick Mahomes?
I think Pittsburgh is
in trouble.
In trouble. I do. I think that especially with the game this weekend, they're going up against one of the hottest teams in the league right now through 2 games. You are going to be trying to get after a Ryan Fitzpatrick who has been very, very good and has seemed pretty much unstoppable so far in his journeyman years. I just don't. I don't know. This Pittsburgh offense needs to get on track in terms of not trying to play catch up in a 21-0 ball game. They need to get on track. They need to be feeling good about the plays. And then defensively, they've got to make some plays. They haven't done that yet. And, well, I shouldn't say that they did in the Browns game, but then they didn't because they made enough plays to keep them in it. But the Browns also did some of that themselves. The Browns had a chance to win. They should have. Zane Gonzalez, poor dude, no longer with the team. But I think that Pittsburgh, in their first 2 games, not good. And now it gets harder.
That's exactly it. And for me, I wouldn't be surprised if, especially this weekend, you'll have to wait for the pick segment to see who I pick, but I would not be surprised if the Steelers are 0-2-1 after week 3 this week. But this is where you guys come in. Let us know what you guys think about this whole Steeler situation down below in the comment section. What do you think about the AB stuff? What do you think about Mike Tomlin? What do you think about the Steelers and their record so far? What do you think about the Le'Veon Bell situation? Big Ben, this, that. There's a ton of stuff to hit. Just whatever's on your mind. Just throw it down there in the comment section. Let us know what you guys are thinking.